Hello and welcome again to another episode of SWBC TV's Business Interview. Today we are looking at a slightly different company structure, one that most people don't consider as a business in itself. It has everything to do with business, because at the end of the day, if you don't make a profit, you don't survive. And it's farming. And I'd like to introduce Fiona Elliott of Cresswell Barn Farm.
Hello.
Thank you very much for coming to see us.
Thank you for asking me to come.
And to talk and giving your time. So, farming. Farmers produce the food that we eat. Without them, there is no food, or you have to buy it in from other countries. We have huge acreages of farms in the world, in the UK, and one of the things that I'm really interested in is how, most people say farmers, they just look after the land. But actually, it is a business in itself. It goes through all the processes like every other business in investment, change, development, innovation. And I've seen it happen at Cresswell over the last few years. One of the things I'm interested in is, how did you get involved in farming in the first place? You come from a farming family?
Yes. My father did farm until that went wrong for him, and then he went back into engineering. And that brought us into Pembrokeshire, near the refineries, he was a precision engineer, so he worked...
So he worked in the refinery?
Well, not in the refinery. He used to work on lathes, and if you thought of any kind of metal, he'd make anything that would make those refineries.
Was that an engineering business supplying?
He worked for an engineering business, an American one, which has, again, since gone now. So that brought us into Pembrokeshire, which brought us to the water, the life which we love. And then I met my husband Ian, who transpires lived only 9 miles away from us when we lived in Buckinghamshire, but I didn't know him. And his father moved down to Pembrokeshire to farm.
It was fate.
Yeah, the local pub was the fate.
The local pub, was it?
Being
Which one's
the bar
that?
lady.
Is that? Oh, you were the bar lady?
Stanley Arms, which is long since gone. Married Ian, 19 years of age. 42 years later, we're still there, still married, 2 children, and that is how you've seen our lives change. With when perhaps we'd be taking life easier, we've now got the children that haven't wanted to go away because what life offers us in Pembrokeshire, and the farm, which gives the bonus of the horses, gives the bonus of being near the beaches for the surfing and everything, but a chance to earn a living and be part of the family, which even at 19, you'd have never thought that our special place in Cresswell Quay would be what it offers them, that they don't actually want to go. Yeah,
it's interesting because you see so many stories about young people on farms wanting to go to the city, to the excitement and that sort of thing, especially with Pembrokeshire being so far away from any of the major cities like London and stuff. It's like 4 or 5 hours to drive there.
But perhaps the young people leaving Pembrokeshire, particularly in the agriculture side, is perhaps not a reflection on what's happened with agriculture. That we're seeing small farms disappear to be absorbed by larger farms, whether it be larger dairies or being larger to survive, to become bigger. Us, we had one tractor, did the vegetables, the potatoes 12 years ago, and now we have harvesters, destoners, 4 or 5 tractors, 3 or 4 people that work for us, all because Patrick announced after A-levels saying, well, actually, I don't want to go to university, I think I want to farm. And then that was a case of fall off your chair.
Oh, God.
Sit back up, because you've been so involved with everything else other than farming till that point, to say, right, what do we do? We could carry on as we are, sit back at 65 and say, let's rent the land out to the bigger farmers and we've worked hard, we've earned our rest time. But if, as a family, you want to carry on, which what farming often does and hasn't worked out for a lot of families because they haven't been able to do it, is to be able to say, okay, but I understand you want to change. Because to farm the way, if Patrick wanted to come home, we had to change. And then Tessa came home as well. We had to say we had to incorporate them in the business. And that was not going to survive on what we were doing. And there was a window that we took that has led us to where we are now.
So you've at that point you saw it. We have to sustain this as a legacy so that it can be passed on.
Well, isn't the countryside like that? We're just custodians. We own a farm. We look after it. We have this campsite that they see how we look after it, and hopefully you're able to tell them or show them or let them feel that we're not all.
We don't want to stick in this one mould.
No,
let's look at all the options.
As long as we're here, we want to leave it in a fit state for the next people. Hopefully to farm and to keep it as you'd like to see it when you walk through the countryside.
Over the years, I know that you've had sheep, you've had dairy.
Yeah, we've done a bit of everything now, I think.
The changes that took place at that point, what led to that? Is it because the market's changed? Is it because you saw opportunities?
Yeah, we used to do beef. And we didn't want to do dairy because we just didn't feel that was us. We wanted to do beef. And we did it in a big way. I used to rear 40 calves every 8 weeks, and we used to sell 40 fat cattle. That was a cash flow. And we were good at it. So
basically you had the calves, you fattened them up.
We brought in 40 beef calves. I reared them on milk till they were about 7 weeks of age. Then I'd pass them on to the other part of the buildings where they were reared, and they went out as fat cattle in 18 months, 20 months.
So it's 18 months, so your investment for the 40 cattle, you didn't see
Well, basically then you had your 40 calves, basically roughly 40 fat cattle, if everything went well.
So it's quite a long cycle, a financial cycle.
Well, a long cycle, but there was a cash flow. But then that word, BSE. And that just took the market away. The beef price just fell through the floor, and we had to think then, look, if we keep buying these calves in, we haven't got a market at the end of it. We can't, if 2 years' time we could have lost more money. So we said, right, let's phase the cattle out, and because we'd built up so much fertility on the land with these cattle, our neighbour said, look, you could go organic. We went, yeah, organic. He said, look, your land is fertile.
When was this?
This was about 2000.
And organic was becoming very popular in the supermarkets.
It was very
premium priced.
Premium priced, and there was definitely a window to grow organic potatoes, which the pack house was in Lincolnshire. So for several years, I think we grew I think we were the largest potato growers in Wales in the end.
Organic.
Growing organic potatoes that we sold and went to Lincolnshire. Then the recession in 2008. We were doing vegetables as well, I hasten to add. 2008, the recession then began to make them all a little bit twitchy. Is there going to be this money to be able to... Because there was a premium on organic food. And then I think, well, we know what happened. The Lincolnshire pack houses said, look, you're a little bit too far away. We think we want to consolidate a bit. We have organic growers a lot nearer. You're out in Pembrokeshire. Thank you very much, but no thank you. So then we thought, oh gosh, right. Well, let's do vegetables and leeks. Leeks for Riverford Organic, for their vegetable box scheme. Vegetables for OFF in Lampeter, which then moved to Leominster. So there was a lot of driving around, a lot of people, a lot of weeding, a lot of, again, and I probably can put this in, whether it be for the potatoes or the vegetables, you see your vegetable when you pick it up in the shops, and you go, that's a nice cauliflower, I like that. But you might not know that out of that cauliflower you've picked, you might have had an acre of cauliflowers that all went that day. Because and we might... For the order that we had, we might have had to see half that, quarter of that field just blow, and you can't pick them. There was a lot of broccoli the same,
Because you've got a very small window.
You've got a very
to
small window, and if you haven't got the market in that small window, that is your loss.
So it's quite high risk, isn't it?
It was very high risk.
The thing is, the other thing you've got against you as well is depends on what the weather's doing.
Well, I think that's probably something that is, which we'll probably talk about how the campsite has brought people into my world, is that you can start to explain that we all are in this, when we have to sign contracts for this contracts for that, and you will provide of this standard, no wonky potatoes, no, we don't want that. The customer wants this perfect looking potato, this perfect looking vegetable. So you say, yes, we'll be able to provide you with so many tons of potatoes, so many cabbages, so many acres of leeks, and you don't sign a contract with him.
No.
Nature has the upper hand.
Yeah.
And that is what we have to always live with, whether it be a dry season when the campers are so happy and we're going, oh my God, we need rain.
Yeah.
We aren't going to get this tonnage to an acre.
But if you get rain, the campers won't come.
We aren't going to get these, And yet the campers, I have two faces, and I'll run forward just quickly because it's quite amusing in the house. Everything's so manic in the mornings because now, leaping forward, we now grow 430, 450 acres of potatoes. Yeah. Not on our land. Yeah. Because we are one of the big boys, I suppose. Yeah. To so you're renting with Patrick and Tessa and the window that there was to now grow Welsh potatoes for Welsh supermarkets under Puffin, who had this vision that they could see that people wanted to know where their meat,
and Puffin's a distribution company.
It's a pack house that stores them, washes them, packs them, and distributes them to their distribution centres, whether it be for whatever supermarket or whoever the contract is for.
I saw them in Aldi this morning.
Did you?
Yes.
Yeah, Charlotte are in Aldi.
Yeah, Charlotte, that's right, and Charlotte, it had Ian's name on it.
Yeah, I've got a bone of contention about that. I think they could move forward and put Ian and Fiona Elliott.
I know, I think so, yes.
Patrick can come a few years later. I've waited long enough. Yeah, so they need to move on with that. But it's a very, very fine line. So the farm is now growing. It's moved forward from the organic when that period...
Yes.
We now saw this window, or were encouraged that Patrick, being the future, and Tessa, they said, look, we need more acres. Yeah. And we said, shall we invest in it? There you are. That comes the next question. Business. Do you not invest? Do you not borrow? And we decided we would go for it. But we wouldn't be able to do it on the acreage we had because to grow potatoes, if you grow potatoes on a field... Yeah. The risk is if you grow it again, the second year, the third year, the fourth year, that is when you will have problems with viruses, diseases.
And you need to rotate.
So it's a very, very high you need many years. You need a 5-year rotation. And this is why we then had to rent land. Yeah. So actually we felt the risk of borrowing to get bigger could be invested in the machinery at the fact that we were renting ground. So if it all goes wrong, you sell machinery and you haven't got a mortgage to pay for extra land. Yes. Because for the acreage we now grow, we'd probably have to have well over 1,000 acres. And those farms don't come up very often. And as you all know, the price of land an acre, working out what you got for your potatoes and everything, it made more sense to rent land with farmers who have been put into a position that they either want it for their rotation, because potatoes are very good for saying, I've got a field of that could do with potatoes in it for a year, because it often leaves a high fertilizer content in it after you've left, which means they can go and put corn in and say, oh, that's good, thank you very much, you've paid me for the rent and I get a good crop of corn. Because also you're only renting it for a short period of time. You're renting it in just January and you're leaving it, hopefully, unlike this year, sorry Mr. Joe Bloggs that we still got our potatoes in your field, we're usually leaving it by October, November, left in a fit state for that farmer to go and put whatever he wants in afterwards, which is a good time. So he'll get a crop out of it
the following year, and probably
then he starts his 4-year rotation, and if we've been good farmers, the way we've treated his land, because at the end of the day, where he will rent from us, we will rent from him again if we've left his field in a state that he feels happy with. It's no good going in there with the kit and coming out and leaving it in a mess, because he's going to say, well, thank you very much, I've had the money for it, but
not again.
No, I'm not having that again. I've got to go back and do that. So this year is an extreme, because we have to explain to farmers, Another added cost which we bear is that we either haven't got the potatoes out because of the weather, or we've had to leave those fields not ready for they can't put anything in. We now have the extra expense that next spring we've got to put men and machines to say, I'm very sorry, they're most understanding, the farmers, they understand nature's done it, but we have to leave it, that they're happy.
When did you diversify into the campsite? Because I know you've got the campsite.
Well, that was one of the times when it was, as a woman, I've always struggled to say, you know, to rely on just the farm income at certain times in the year is a real strain. Ian and I were very lucky and we could get on together. We worked together with the beef, the sheep when we had the sheep, the vegetables. And then at times I would go back into my secretarial skills because I thought, right, I've had enough. We've got no money. I need something to come in. This is a time when I want a bit of money myself. You know, the farm can't do it. Right, I'm off. And off I'd go and back to temping secretarial. Or when times are really hard, not hard as in hard. I know we don't understand. I know what, I can imagine what hard is. But hard for me was thinking that I had to go and take more money out of that monthly account that was going to put a strain on it. So that's when I used to think
when you knew
again.
you need the money, the
So then
farm needed money the next month.
It was better to not look at Ian and say, we're going to have to put more money in that account to and I'd rather not put him under that strain, thinking I can do it. So no, school kitchens, just because it suited the children at that time. Then we grew the vegetables. And suddenly Tessa said to me at about 9 years of age, 10 years, she says, Mummy, I want to start a stall. And I said, oh, that's a good idea, Danny. What do you want to do? And she says, I want a sweet stall. And I said, well, that's fine, but the chocolate might melt in the day. Why don't we go and pick some of the vegetables and we'll put that there? That's a good idea. And I can remember we built this stall and put it at the top of the farm. And Tessa's stall, Tessa's vegetables, and we went and picked some broccoli. And, of course, nobody came up the lane because they didn't know it was there. I used to go down and take a couple of the cabbages and put some money in, and she'd run down and go, look, I've sold some cabbages. Look, the broccoli's gone. I go, they have, haven't they? And even the people that were coming up to get the potatoes would put, oh, I'll put 30p in for her. Then at the pub, the famous Cresselli Arms, if nobody's been there, everybody should
everyone's got to go there. It's like stepping back 100 years.
Yes. And beer from the jug.
Yeah, beer from the jug, the barrels
and no food in it.
No food. Just conversation. And no internet.
So to
just
explain
conversation.
So to explain to anybody that's listening, it's literally, I sell it, it's within staggering distance of the farm, because there have been a few occasions in my married life when I've staggered back from there. It's that close. So Maurice Cole, who was the landlord there at the time, he said, well, God, Tess, why don't you put the veg down here? And we put the veg stall down there, and then Tessa's vegetable stall started. Oh, I've never been so busy in my whole life, you know, what with 2 young children and doing what we were doing. And then this vegetable was taking off. And suddenly I realised, hey, we're talking to people about where our vegetables grown, how you do it, what it is, where it goes, the whole story. Not just picking it up
out of the supermarket into the trolley, take it home.
So before the camping started, we did a bigger stall. And I mean, I was up early hours in the morning picking the veg. Children were still in school at this time.
Were you manning that stall then, or?
No. The whole success of it was I wasn't. And again, this was back to, do you get bigger and have somebody sitting selling it? Or do you just let it find its own way at the bottom of the lane? It was at the T-junction. I could hear people driving down, stopping, getting their veg. Oh my goodness, flying. And I don't mind saying it now, I was probably doing £800,000 a week just on this little stall.
And there was nobody manning it, and it was all down
manning it.
It was all down to honesty box.
And the campsite had just started, so because it was a thought, it was Ian's idea, saying, do you know, there was meadows being permanent pasture and not going to be the right place to become part of modern what we were doing with the farming with the potatoes. It had to stay permanent. It had meadow flowers in it. It had to stay as it was. I know, he said, let's see if we could perhaps, if the Camping and Caravanning Club would be interested in it. So we had them down and they came and they said, yeah, it'd be flat. I think this would be, I wouldn't get too excited. I don't know how many people would want to come. No, fine, well, if it's just as something. And Ian has been, as a partnership, you've got to look at your strengths, both of you. And Ian's is always one that, I think this is a good idea. And then something happens and he leaves me with it. And then it becomes, well, I'm busy now. So we started the campsite and the vegetables were still going on. The campsite was pretty quiet. The farming was taking off conventionally with these potatoes now. But the vegetables became a victim of its own success. 2-3 days in the trot, all the vegetables gone, no money. So I think it just, somebody who needed it more than somebody else thought, well, I can get
the honesty box is great.
Great, but
occasionally,
and it's probably a reflection on society today. And for the few that spoil it for the many, I had to say, well, I can't pick this vegetable and put it down there for this to happen. So we said, right, that has to stop. And I thought, right, now see how the camping does, because I can see that as a way forward. And it's now 9th year next year. So starting from making about, I don't know, £320 one year, we realised we needed electric hookups.
So again, this is more investment into creating the environment that modern campers want to use.
Yeah, it's very difficult though, isn't it? Because you sort of say, where do you draw the line? Do they want hard standing? Because they could come more longer time.
But then that would spoil the meadows. And that's what people
you've
come
been
for.
there, Nigel.
I mean, 4 years ago, we first sort of rocked up at your thing, didn't know where to go, pitched up and met you, and we've been back almost every weekend since.
Well, whenever it's...
if the sun's shining, we're
very
there.
fair weather campers.
I know we're fair weather campers. No, we've been there in the rain a few times as well.
Not often. But going back, doing a bit of a Billy Connolly here, going back to what I was going to say was that if you take an average day in the Creswell Barn household, it has now got to a stage now with what they're doing, and Patrick being very involved and being so proud of how he's the mind game, what he's having, and Ian still, but what he's taken on with the organisation, with these varieties, the amount of information, the amount of organisation, and the amount of everyday planning to have people in the right place, have the right machines, which potatoes already at certain fields, this field to be ready for this machine to go into in 2 days' time, this field to be ready to have what's going to be happening in a day's time, this field over here to have the potatoes there ready to be the planters. There is so much going on now. So you're in a kitchen with right, sandwiches, okay. Now, you will be around if we need more diesel. I'll do that later, fine, right. Okay, right, we're off now. Okay, bye. Cup of tea.
Campsite.
Hi, everybody. Oh, isn't it a beautiful day? Isn't it? Let's sit down. Isn't it beautiful? It's lovely, isn't it? What, you switch off and you go down thinking, but I need that. They need to know what's happening so they know. The campers know what's happening just literally 200 yards up the lane. And what Ian, Patrick and they all need to know, that when they go down and they're busy, that they do wave and say hello, because they're all interested in knowing. And
people
they're
want to know
and
and
actually
learn.
the ones that camp become very appreciative of saying, I didn't know the tractors. I didn't realise you worked so late. I didn't realise you were gone so early.
People think it's a 9-to-5 job. It's not. I mean, I've been down there when Patrick's been coming in or Tessa's been coming in one of the tractors at 1 in the morning, and Patrick's been going out at 3. And it's like 24/7. It's so intense during those periods of planting and all the development. And this, it runs so this time of the year, you get a little bit of a break, which is great. But you're still planning and thinking about next year's crops, And
also, I can see, I feel very passionate about the role for women within it, because you're either just there in the background, or you stand up and say, this is who I am, this is what I can contribute. And I see that very much as the camping has given us a chance that I wouldn't, if I was Tessa's age, and she hasn't gone down the secretarial route, which I did, but she hasn't got to rely on going out to work as a temp secretary to bring money in. The camping has now afforded a vision that whoever is the lady that takes over after myself, they need not leave the farm to have a contribution to whether a bit for themselves or a bit to the farm. And if they have children, it could still be run with the children. I see so many farms now that is relying on that
external employment
extra
to
income,
actually make it
and
run.
that's so sad. I still think, why can't that 250 acres support that husband and that wife working together, which is so special?
Are there opportunities for young people to get into farming
Not
now?
easy.
Because here in the management department, they are learning all the skills that you were talking about. Okay, they might not know exactly what the processes are and things, but they're learning the skills of management, not necessarily of people, but of processes and knowing timescales. What is the opportunity for them to get into farming? Because it's
well, I've seen
some people are interested in doing that, and it can be a very. I think what it is about farming is it's not the 9 till 5. It is long hours. It is hard work, but there are some glorious things that you see, and I've seen it with you, and I know that Tessa uses Instagram, and she puts out photographs of her in her enormous tractor because she's so diminutive. She's this massive tractor there.
Yeah, well, I mean,
the
you're
fields
going back
with the views of Pembrokeshire, and if you're sitting in a city office block, at the keyboard, doing the business or whatever you're doing in an air-conditioned thing, and you've got to struggle through.
I know it is a struggle, but at the end of the day,
no. For people working in the city, they're struggling through traffic to get into work in the morning, traffic to get home, and the stress is involved with all that. And then you see someone stressed, working hard, long hours, but then when they stop for their cup of tea and their lunch break and things, they look out and there's this fantastic view across Pembrokeshire over Freshwater West or Angle and
I
down
know, as
the
they
coast.
say,
And you
it's
think,
not a bad day to sit and have your lunch in the office.
Yeah, I'm working from a really nice office today, and you see that, but that shows the benefits of it.
Oh yeah, there isn't a day
But it's the
that
hard
even in the
work.
pouring rain, you walk out of your front door, and you say, "This is horrible weather," or "Oh my goodness, isn't this beautiful?" And you've walked to your work.
Yeah.
Tessa walks out of the door.
Yeah.
Across the yard to her horses.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to get in a car and drive for 10 minutes to livery.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to pay somebody for livery. She knows that she's lucky.
Yeah.
Patrick knows he's lucky. And I think that they're both lucky with the vision that Ian had to allow them to do what they wanted to do. Sometimes it's difficult. You want to stay as you are. And that's the biggest mistake you can make if your children come back to the farm. But for youngsters that want to get into it, I mean, we've got them that work for us. We've got certain 18-year-old Tom.
Are they local lads then?
Yeah, they're local lads.
Are they from farming backgrounds, or are they just living in the village and all nearby?
I think they would say they're in a position to be lucky enough to work on farms, and they're lucky enough to be working on farms that hopefully they would say appreciate them. And we're seeing them forward by helping them to get their certificates for, using the telehandler, the sprayer.
Do they also go to college as well? Or?
Yeah, Tom did, but he.
That's right. Yeah. I think I met him
he went
there
to
at
Getley
Eye. That's right. Yes. Because one of the things I've always found amazing about Getley Eye and the students that are there is that a lot of them are coming from farms. They start at 5 in the morning. They get up. They have to do work on the farm. Then they jump in their cars, drive from as far away as Fishguard and Haverfordwest all the way to Llandilo to go to college, study all day, and then they've got to go through the same routine for 5 days a week. And I think sometimes it's the dedication that these youngsters put into it, and then just because of the cruelness of nature in providing bad weather, they go through really hard financial times, so they have to change and do something else or get out of the industry. And we all eat. We all have to eat. And this is what I find, this is why I respect.
Do you I wonder. I'm a bit worried that
Farming
in the mood, the climate as it is today. I think perhaps can we carry on like this?
Yeah.
Can we carry on? Does that housewife really, really want that potato that has no blemish?
Yeah.
Does that housewife really, really not want to give up red meat because she thinks it's been produced the way that we have been seeing?
Yeah.
Does that housewife, does that family really want to not buy that bent carrot? Because for the fact of perfection, who's wanting the perfection? I would ask.
That's right.
And
Is it the supermarket saying that?
We haven't got enough time to cover.
Oddly enough, I mean, when I was in the supermarket this morning, I noticed that they had wonky carrots. They're selling them as wonky carrots, but actually, when I remember as a lad, and I've grown potatoes in the garden with my parents and everything else, and you pull the potatoes out, you peel them, and you shove them in the pot, and you do your stuff, and it doesn't matter what shape they are, and if there's a little bit of a blemish, you just cut it out, and that's it. And I think sometimes a lot of it's to do with the supermarkets pushing the fact that they want these perfect things, because we see often about stuff being left in the ground or ploughed back into the ground because it's not perfect. It's not somebody's idea of perfect.
I mean, I think the thing with the supermarkets is whether we like it or not.
Is that a marketing job then for farmers to get out there and say, look, the food's food, and that, it's good stuff?
I think it's difficult on your own. Okay, we might be a large producer of Welsh potatoes for Welsh supermarkets, but we haven't got the energy, the time.
Yeah, because you're too busy producing it.
Because we often have to deal in the office now with them saying, can I speak to this person? I said, well, actually, they're out in the field. Well, can I speak to them on their mobile? No, you can't, because they wouldn't hear you above the machines that they're working with. Can I help you?
And again, it's the risk of the business, because your investment in seed potato to go in the ground, you won't get paid for that until how long? 18 months later?
Well, it can be. That.
So it's
a difficult one to explain to the bank manager.
Yeah, you have to sit and wait for the money to come back in, and again, in that time, you could have had a really bad weather.
But mixing the two, that's where the campsite is very interesting, because you have a chance to be able to tell them of the story, of the life, of how it works. It's very hard to explain to somebody. You don't go into a supermarket and pick a bag of potatoes off the shelf and say, is it all right if I pay you when I've been paid at the end of the month? They wouldn't have that. And yet, with the way it works...
The producers, you have to
Well, my father, bless him, and I don't know, we haven't talked about Daddy, have we? Pops, who we could still get very emotional about in our own ways, because it's only a year, literally, since he's left us. If I take you back about Pops, 95 years of age when he left us, glider pilot in the Second World War, lived with me for 7 years, but became part of the family.
Well, I used to answer the phone when we used to book.
Yeah, he became the eldest secretary in Pembrokeshire, we reckon, didn't we?
That's right.
But it was what he saw. It is what he'd seen. It had seen agriculture, how it changed from the horses to the tractors. And I said to him, well, I bet you missed the horses. And he said, no. He said, I don't miss the horses, because he said, if you don't look after a tractor, it doesn't matter. But there were a lot of farmers who didn't look after their horses. So I was glad. And he saw the farming change, and he always said, I always admire Ian, because he will change. He's always thinking of what he can do. He's never going to stay in the same place. And that's why, again, I say change is all right if you think of change, not if it's forced upon you. And he said with the camping, I remember being in the meadows with the dog, sitting at Pop's corner beside the river, and saying, well, we're thinking of this, Dad, so what do you think? And he said, oh, they'll come. He said, they'll come.
Actually,
they'll come. And actually, I've never put it on the website, but he said, and because I don't know.
It's personal.
He said, it is personal, because he said, they'll come because of you. They'll come because of the family. And I think, if I could scream and shout, or if I could tell anybody, it's to be true to yourself and be able to say, this is who I am, this is what we stand for. I can tell you, let me let you feel it, let me let you live it. and then you can be compassionate about it, and you can understand perhaps a bit about our lives.
Yeah. And I think also that I've seen as well is that the passion that you show for the land and the grounds and the meadows around you, the agriculture, everything that you do, it does go across to the campers. They appreciate it, and that's why they keep coming back. And I've seen it now where I've got a book now. I used to be able to just turn up. I've got a book now to come and camp there. And this is the whole thing about it. I think people are starting to realise that tourism isn't just about turning up.
No, and I mean,
and it's also about understanding and learning about the surrounding. They can't use their internet anyway because there's no signal there.
And I mean, look how tourism has changed for Pembrokeshire in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that people don't all want to stay in Tenby and Saundersfoot. Yeah. They do want to stay in the countryside. They want to be beside the river.
Yeah. Fiona,
we could go on.
We could go on for hours and hours and hours, and I'm sure we will around the campfire next year. It is. I thank you ever so much for coming up to see us here in SWBC, and telling us your personal story. Farming is often ignored and pushed to the back end because people just don't associate the plastic wrapping or the tray with the vegetables, the plastic bag, and the work that goes into getting that to them.
Well, it'd be lovely if anybody wants to see it.
I know, and please, well, that's what I'm going to say now is if you want to find more out about camping or Pembrokeshire or tourism, I thoroughly recommend Cresswell Barn Farm Campsite. The tranquility and peacefulness there is absolutely amazing. Fiona, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for asking me.
Absolute pleasure again. And for those of you who want to find out more about business and about the various types of business and see more of these interviews, don't forget to subscribe if you're on YouTube. Press the little bell as well to remind you when new videos go up. And also follow us on Vimeo. We also have a LinkedIn page which you can follow where we'll be posting stuff out in commentary about some of the people that we are interviewing. Fiona, thank you.
Thank you, Nigel.
Thank you for watching. And we look forward to you coming to watch us again in the not too distant future. Bye-bye for now.